Do you recognise that? Well, of course you do. It's a football rattle. But the chances are, you know, if you're under 40 years of age, you probably never used one. And youngsters today haven't got the wrist-hand coordination either. You're all right with all that, you for FIFA 98 soccer madball, but this is a completely different skill. If you was really good, like when I was a kid, you could get it to within a quarter of an inch of the face of the bloke standing behind you. But now, you wouldn't even get it into a stadium. It's probably classed as an offensive weapon, like umbrellas and inflatable bananas. This is a relic. It's a throwback to the old days when the football fan was a handsome lad, a freshly scrubbed, shiny-haired, honest as the day is long, working-class chap who didn't care a tuppenny fig governor if some facetious git from the newsreel took the piss out the way he talked.
Cup final day, and the fans from Sheffield are on their way in search of that cup. A picture of fervour, excitement, almost hysteria. Thousands of supporters trekking south to cheer on their heroes, the men of steel, the Blades, in the battle of the big arena. And Londoners, you can guess they're going to be there as well, with the war cry on their lips, up the Gunners, up the Reds, never dreaming that the famous Arsenal can fail.
Of course, as the times changed, so did the fans, and the war cry was no longer up the Gunners, up the Reds, but it changed quite subtly to things like, you're going to get your head kicked in, stab, stab, stab the bastard, stab, stab, stab the bastard, stab, stab, stab the bastard.
Shut up a minute while I do it, please. They're outnumbering the police horribly. Dreadful scenes at Kenilworth Road. The police now charging, truncheons drawn, and this is what British football has got to contend with now.
Lately, of course, football has become a corporate entertainment. It's all hospitality boxes, all-seater stadiums, especially at the big grounds, OK? There are people who used to look down their noses at the beautiful games, rejects from Twickenham and Cowdrey Park, suddenly turning up at Stamford Bridge and White Hart Lane. Of course, football's always attracted its fair share of shady criminal types. The only difference is these are rich ones.
And a love of football as well, that must come into it.
Well, without the love of football, I wouldn't be interested. I'd be buying a yacht.
So, there it is, the history of the football fan. 3 easy stages. First, they were simple, then they were violent, then they were rich. What a remarkably short programme that would be. And, of course, nothing's ever that simple, is it? Back in the old days, my friends, the old black and white days, they had their fair share of drunks and hooligans, and damn fine ones as well. Have a look at this magnificent drunk, and then watch the next clip. And if you're ever knocked unconscious on the terraces, this is the only way to behave.
The weather was unkind, but everyone was full of enthusiasm just the same. In fact, one or two were, well, you'll see what I mean.
Sure, blimey, my style's governor, I've been M-shanked. Come on, lads, you did it at the Somme. I'm damn sure you can do it at Wembley. Over the top. Let's all go in. All they've got some copper on a white horse. He'll never stop us.
It was not till the final whistle went that Burkitt collapsed exhausted and had to be carried off. Manchester went out in the next round to Birmingham.
I'm sure you noticed that. As the fan ran on and whacked the copper, the commentator completely oblivious to it. That was the rules in them days. You didn't mention any sort of off-the-field incident with the working class oiks. And it was some time before a man arrived with the courage to speak out against the atrocities being committed in the name of sport. A man who wasn't afraid to let the nation know in the strongest possible terms how disgusted he was by some of the goings-on off the field. That man, of course, Wolstenholme.
Now, there was trouble too, I see, at West Ham, where orange peel and apple cores were hurled at the referee at the end of West Ham's 1-1 draw with Rotherham. I wonder why people do that sort of thing.
I think you'll find the reason they do it, Kenneth, is because the option is to actually eat the apple core, which, as anyone's mum will tell them, means that the pips settle in your bladder and they grow and a big tree comes up and it's all, but you wouldn't mind having that on your conscience. OK. Here's an interesting account of the football fan from a man who should know what he's talking about. It's Stan Cullis, who played and managed at the very highest level. He was at Wolves, he played for England. Despite the terrible handicap, as you'll clearly see from these pictures, he was a Gerry Anderson puppet.
But these people on a Saturday change their identity. A lot of them put on the club scarves, the club badges, club hats. They wave a rattle. They can express themselves on a Saturday quite distinct from their ordinary mundane job during the week. And I think this is what's happened to spectators, because they have a sense of pride in supporting a club which is successful. And they almost feel a sense of shame in being identified with a club that's not successful.
The shame of supporting an unsuccessful team. Man City fans, if you think, oh, he's being really personal, he means us, you know, you're absolutely spot on. He's talking down to the ages to you Kipax boys. But the key there is the transforming thing. They did. Nowadays, people turn up at football wearing whatever they've got clean in the dryer. You go in your jeans, T-shirts, suit, whatever. But, you know, back in the old days of Matthews, Lofthouse and that mob, people made a real effort to dress up for the match. And there were a host of weird and fantastically wonderful characters at games. Leicester City had their very own Dr. Doolittle. Bristol Rovers, of course, the Black Arabs had a pirate. Manchester City's famous silver-hatted Rattle Boys. Who can forget the sight of the young Elvis serving tea to Bob Hoskins? The Wolves marionette, and an early example of police brutality. Get it there, you clown. Blackpool fans, very weird bunch. All I can tell you, they dressed as women and there was a duck involved. In case you're wondering about those Blackpool fans, a lot of transvestites in football in them days, because women used to get in for free. So blokes would dress up as women and say, I don't have to pay. Look, I'm a lady. The most famous was Conrad Hurst, who was Lee Hurst's grandfather. I think we picked him out at one of the matches. Spurs fans didn't want to dress up as women, they dressed up as sailors, and to show what real men they were, they actually took their own travelling brothel with them. There's Chesterfield's famous fainting lady, and a sight sadly missed since they lost their league status, Barrow's levitating men. People packed into football grounds. Your granddads are telling the truth when they say, oh yeah, there was 150,000 at the Valley. It was a reserve game against Dulwich Hamlet Tuesday morning. There were 200,000 Workington v Barnsley. But they had to go to football because the alternative wasn't worth considering, right? You had to watch the newsreel pictures. Now, maybe their eyesight was better than mine, but the next time you complain about football coverage today with the little dolly at the side of the pitch and the time in the top left-hand corner, look what your grandparents had to watch.
But here are remarkable pictures taken by Movitone's aerial courier of the game in progress, with Arsenal playing from the east goal on our right. You can follow the movement of man and ball on the gleaming turf, despite the height at which regulations obliged flying, and observe a section of that crowd of 93,000.
You can see what waves of attack. Imagine, if you will, going to the Royal Albert Hall, getting a box at the very top and watching a game of Subbuteo on stage. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. But fans love football. They went because they loved it, and they would do anything. You may not know this. When Wembley was faced with paying huge fees to an international firm of safety consultants, local supporters, local men and women stepped in and said, hey, 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 we'll do it for you. We'll check the safety for you. And look at these guys clearing the snow and ice away at the Valley. Not Charlton fans, Bayern Munich fans. They're German prisoners of war. And they did it not because they were coerced, but because they loved the game and they wanted to help football. That's how fans are. Obviously, they had another reason. It's because Charlton were going to be playing Sheffield United that afternoon, and we all know who Sheffield United's biggest fan was back then. But they were the good old days. Slowly, things were changing. A cancer was spreading within football, an evil influence threatening to kill off the beautiful game.
All we're going for is a good game of football, a good punch up and a good piss up.
And there is some fighting going on the terraces away to my right, and there are people being pushed about, and this is very unfortunate, very ugly, and a shame to see.
People are frightened of us all over England.
No, hang on, sorry, yeah, they were soccer hooligans. Fine, we'll come to them. Actually, I meant something far more sinister. A much more insidious threat. Cheery, funny, friendly Scousers.
But you know, the stories like there was years ago when before this the lights were on, they brought the white ball out and used to bring a white ball on when it went a bit dusk. We're all sitting there and it went dusk, but we're getting beat 4-2. I think it was Wolverhampton who were beating us. I think it was a Saturday game, yeah. And they shouted for the white ball, after he's singing for the white ball.
Hang on, I'm sorry, can I stop you there for a minute? This joke doesn't end with the punchline, "It's the white stick you want." Please, please, don't make it that gag.
And one voice come out of 28,000 people and shout, "It's not a white ball you want, it's a bloody white stick." Well, the whole cop uproar, you know, all the time, and this is what it's all about. It's just funny being there.
I remember when we were in the Cop and the fellow was coming round with the half-time papers and he shouted, "Stoke Margarine Factory got broken into," and one of the cops shouted, "I believe he buttered the night watchman." And somebody else said, "He was spread out all over the place." Oh, what's the great? This is, as I say, the greatest in the world. When they found out that we're playing Newcastle, one of the cops said, "Did you hear about the Geordie and the Scouser walking through the jungle?" And the Scouser said, "Are they war drums?" And the Geordie said, "No, they're theirs."
Hang on, sorry, maybe it's get lost in the telling. War drums. Is that how Geordies talk or something? I don't understand. And buttered, why would you butter a night watchman? You head butted him? You see what I mean? It's something, it's a joke that only exists in a tiny little square mile of the northwest of England. Why don't you people understand that, all right? But that's what they're famous for. In Sheffield, they have the steel industry where people work. In Dagenham, they have the motor industry where people work. In Northampton, they have the shoe industry where people work. In Liverpool, they have two things and two things only, my friend. They have, hey, jokes. Hey, we love a joke here. Stan Boardman, Jimmy Tarbuck. And, of course, music. Some of the great popular songs of the age. Some of the great songwriters. Lennon, McCartney, Griffiths. Whew, that Griffiths. Boy, he could turn a tune. No mind about Yesterday and Hey Jude. Len Griffiths. He's the man they should have had the statue to.
Well, I'm just in the middle, actually, of trying to get a song going, you know, to commemorate getting to Wembley once again. It's very difficult to compose a song because it's got to be a catchy tune, you know, that'll get on with the rest of the lads on the Cop. They can easily pick it up and that. And also, secondly, it's got to be, you know, getting a dig at the other team as well as, you know, glorifying our own boys. And this one goes like this. I'll sing this one for you anyhow. It goes, "It's a long way to Wembley Stadium, but we'll be there, we know. The Copites will be singing as the Reds they lick the foe. Farewell, little Carlisle, goodbye Newcastle too. It's the FA Cup for the Copites and nothing for you."
I wonder why people do that sort of thing.
But that's, as I said, that one is going to be the main one, but I'm just working away, you know.
I suppose the thing is about those songs, right? Yeah, they're rubbish, but at least they scanned, and also they were complimentary to their team, all right? Because that's what people do. Back in the old days, just look, have a listen to this.
As soon as the ball was centred and the referee's whistle blew, the Hammers got up their temper and away with the ball they flew. Skinner passed to Wyatt, and Wyatt didn't know what to do, so he pushed it through to Ruffle, and Ruffle shot it through. Goal!
What would you do these days? Can you imagine the North Bank nowadays bursting into song? And Seaman rolled it to Winterburn. Winterburn gave it to Overmars. Overmars didn't know what to do. You wouldn't have. Poor old Wyatt. What's he ever done? An old West Ham player, maybe had one bad game and that's it. He's been immortalised in song. Would never let his wife or his kids or his family come and see the games because, no, on the chicken run they're going to sing that song where I didn't know what to do. Poor old sod. These days, the guys that write the football songs are slightly more enigmatic.
It's football, yes! Boo.
There are worse things I could do than go with a boy or two.
There are worse things I can do than go with a boy or two. I don't know. I think that's a song that might work at Stamford Bridge, but probably not anywhere else. But of course, we can't present a serious, in-depth documentary about the football fan without a serious look at the hooligan. A savage, brutal, steely-eyed thug, shaven-haired in boots and braces.
Have you had much trouble with the police yourself, Billy?
Been in trouble a few times, yeah.
Arrested?
Yeah.
And what happened to you when you went to court?
Just get fined. You just get fined or you get put away. I won't pay me fines. I mean, I am a lot of money now, but I won't pay me fines.
What do you think will happen to you the next time you get into trouble with the police?
I don't really give a shit about it, really. I do time. I don't mind doing time. It's easy, innit? Doing time. You come back out, you just support Millwall. You have more punch-ups and you just go back in. Don't you? And that's that.
Of course, the thugs didn't completely hold sway. There were some dissenting voices.
Not all of the drinkers in the Crown and Anchor agreed with F-Troop's philosophy, or with our right to film them.
What do you want? What do you want? You want to say, oh, yeah, we all had a punch-up? That's not what football's about, is it?
It is these days.
No, why is it?
It is.
Why?
Do you go away? Do you go away?
Damn fuck.
Do you go away games?
Oh,
Don't now.
That's all right.
When's the last away game you went?
The problem here is this, right? Travelling supporters have always felt superior to fans who don't go away, all right? Let me explain what that means, because it's a difficult point. If you go away, it means you travel to another ground and go in the away supporters' end and watch your team away from home, as opposed to going to your team's home ground and watching them at home. That is away, okay? That's what it means. It's a difficult one, I know.
Do you ever go away, yeah? Well, when's the last away game you went?
What are you talking about, away?
You see, it is a difficult concept, isn't it? Especially if you're nervous anyway, because you're talking to, obviously, Bob Hoskins in a wig.
Do you go away every week?
Not every week, no.
Do you have to put up all the verbal we take every week?
Yeah, but why should you have to take verbal?
We don't. Because I've been brought up like that. If someone has a go at me, I'll have a go at them.
Yeah, oh, I agree with it.
And I won't take it from a northerner.
Well, why?
Because I won't. Because we won't. That's what I won't.
Well, we do.
I've been following. I'll tell you what. I've been following these years. I've been following this club years, and I mean years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not going away for some dirty northern punts to spit all over me. If he spits over me, I'll put a fucking pint glass in his head.
Oh, well, that's it then. It's not just mindless violence. It's a political statement. It's Thatcher's fault. Disastrous economic policies leading to the great north-south divide. They're just pawns in a political game. That's all it is. Millwall, to give them credit, like a lot of clubs, tried to remedy the situation. They had this fantastic theory, and that was, rather than the fans just making their own way to opposing grounds and causing trouble, why don't we put them all together? Where? On a train. What, with all those seats and light fittings and things to be ripped out? Might just work.
Unfortunately, not all of Millwall's supporters travelled on the train. Half of them made their own way to Bristol, including F-Troop, who hired a coach for the occasion.
So they're going by coach, you see, not on the train where people can keep an eye on them. But they're only going to Bristol, so there shouldn't be any trouble there. I shouldn't show you this, right? I stole it from the BBC. It's a Teletubbies naming document, top secret. You wouldn't believe it. They spent like £500,000 of your licence payers' money getting together a select committee to come up with the names of the Teletubbies. Took them months, and eventually there were two groups of names on the shortlist. The one that got chosen, Tinky Winky, Dipsy, Lala and Poe, and the other one, the other group of names was,
Bobby the Wolf, Harry the Dog, Mad Pat and Winkle piled into the bus, which at £3 a head was £1 cheaper than the train.
Well, we want to do a few geezers out there, like. We're the F-Troops, see what I mean? We love a row, we got football. And this is it.
Oh, look, too bad, Harry, look.
Is that more important than the football? No, nothing's more important. Well, it's about equal.
To me, we're not classed as a hooligan. We're going there, you look, we've got no boots on, nothing. You know? No scarves. We go there, no scarves, we never wear our colours, nothing. We go there, if we're going to Bristol Wind, we'll go there for a drink. They know we're Londoners, they can tell you're Londoners, you know?
15 times smarter.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Give us credit.
We go there, like, and you've always got that one northerner who wants to have a go at you.
So there's your problem, basic geography, okay? Never mind about the Panini sticker albums or the SO World Cup tokens with the pictures of the players on it. This is what football fans needed back then. Look, a map of the country they lived in, with a little line across the middle through Birmingham, and there. Fight, not fight. Fight, not fight. It's that simple, all right? Where's Burnley? Burnley's around about here. And, you know, all this would have been avoided if back in the old days, Burnley's enlightened example had just been followed through.
Burnley fans board the first Football League Super League liner. First-class travel, say Burnley directors, for first-class supporters. But football hopes it's a new answer to the football hooligan problem, providing less destructive ways of letting off that excess steam. For music lovers, there's a choice of light, classical or pop.
Look at them two. You know for a fact if they didn't have Vivaldi to keep them occupied, she'd be standing knifing some Chelsea scum.
Gaming and games rooms. And nosh, served by volunteer waiters. Bobby Driver, supporter for 52 years, still stands by Lancashire Tripe, as well as Burnley football team. For the teeny boppers, a discotheque with coloured lights, disc jockeys, and a noise guaranteed to beat any train stone deaf.
Walking down the street. Walking down the street.
For the real football addicts, there's football on colour television. Burnley lost to Queen's Park Rangers, but it was a win for the league liner.
The main problem with dealing with football hooligans was this, basically. No one understood them. Certainly not the authorities, certainly not the people who ran Burnley Railways, and definitely not the writers of TV dramas. Just let me tell you this, OK, if you were involved in Angels back then. It doesn't matter how much of a Chelsea fan you were, if you were a four-eyed gawk like that, there is no way you would turn down an afternoon with the woman off of EastEnders.
Are we going out this afternoon then? We said we'd get a boat, go down the river or something.
Liverpool's captain, Emlyn Hughes, has already taken...
Don't let's just hang about the hospital, he says. Let's go out, do something nice for a change, he says.
Why couldn't they have had Mulligan in as centre-half? We haven't got a dog's chance now.
Chelsea. Chelsea.
What the hell was all that about? If you're a young Chelsea fan in the prime of life and you're confronted with a pretty young student nurse in hospital, what are you going to do? Well, there's a long list. One of them ain't this. It don't happen like that. I mean, give Angels their due. At least they had real teams, not stupid made-uppy ones like Casualty. You join us on the afternoon of the big third-round tie between those giants of the game, Holby City and Selwood. Excuse me? It's like in the comics when they used to have Everpool against Liverton. I mean, did they really think they were kidding anyone? You know, as usual, the only people who had any real grasp of this social phenomena were those people working at the cutting edge of television.
And you've probably recognised from the furry arms that the two players wearing the strip there are both teddies.
They certainly are, because I've noticed on quite a few of the top matches that I've watched on television that there are often quite a few teddies out front, cheering with the best of them.
I don't know if you remember that particular edition of Blue Peter. It went horribly pear-shaped when Big Ted from Play School came and kicked the stuffing out of them two little bears. It was horrible. It was an ugly incident. John was crying. Shep got angry. One of the cats ran away into the garden. Problems, of course, in this technological age are far more sinister for those policing the sport of football.
It's a matter for the stewards to determine whether the cowbell is too big or not to be let into the stadium. And I think Eric already has some fears that...
Sorry, did she say cowbells? She said cowbells, didn't she? The police intelligence unit are worried about, what, these? Oh, wow, yeah. Like, that's really going to wreak havoc in the stadia of the world, isn't it? What the hell? She said, how dangerous can a cowbell be? Yeah, all right, fair enough, point taken. But, you know, bovine bells, they weren't the biggest problem facing the police. On a warm, balmy night in July 1996, a little-known band of England supporters called the Front introduced one of the most hideous weapons that had ever been brought into action against the special patrol groups. What can I tell you? They were attacking the police with a lady's upstairs bits.
I wonder why people do that sort of thing.
So there, finally, you really do have it. The history of the football fan. And today, well, today, He's a cultured man. He's a graduate. He probably reads The Guardian. He understands about music and poetry and art. He's a man who quite possibly does say, "Up the Reds, up the Gunners."
If you can call cutting a cow in two and suspending it in formaldehyde art, then there's no reason why you couldn't say that Stockport versus Burnley in the Freight Rover isn't art.
It's a game for poets, you know, it's a game for physical poets. It's like if you listen to sort of avant-garde jazz, like all this discordant racket, and suddenly in the middle of it, something beautiful comes out. And you don't know whether that beautiful thing is more beautiful because of the discordant racket that's around it, or whether it's actually beautiful in itself. And I think that's maybe a thing with football.
You know, I'd never thought of it like that. I don't think ever we've sat down Brisbane Road and said, Alex Inglethorpe, very much a Stefan Grappelli of his age. I mean, they're not all Ponzi, don't get me wrong. There are still working class fans, but they now have a good take on the game. If you can fight your way through this man's accent, there's a fantastic analogy between drug addiction, alcoholism, and a love of football.
People's addicted to alcohol, people's addicted to drugs, and to me there should be something like for a football fan, because it's the same phenomenon. It's a drug. I've been at work one day a few years ago, a number of years ago, and somebody says, "Oh, Sunderland's got a game tomorrow night." I went, "No, they haven't." And for some reason I'd missed it. They were playing a friendly. Next day I had a day off. I'm away to the match. And to me, I didn't have to think twice about it. It's like people that have a drink, they cannot refuse it. I cannot refuse going to a football game. I've got to go on.
And thank God, violent behaviour seems to be a thing of the past.
What happened to you? A Newcastle United fan buried off with an argument over football, unfortunately. But that's life, I suppose.
Yeah, all right, but it's different in the North East. Biting someone's ear off is just the same as going out for dinner with them. They've always done it. What about Gogan? He was from Middlesbrough. Why, hey, Van Gogh, call them sunflowers. Come here, pet man. What about this guy? Never mind about Jill Dando, OK? This is the man who should be presenting the holiday show.
I think if you come in without football, it's the place to come, Sardinia. It's because England, like, we've all got this thing to be hard and tough, but in these countries, people just don't want to know about it, like, and I just blame, like, you know, I'm not political, but I just blame the government for what they're doing. To the people, I'm not saying the people in England, like, you know, they've got it very hard in England. To people in these countries, we ain't got this scenery, we've got dirty seawater, everything's dirty about England, and yet, like, the people are just normal people in Sardinia, and that's what I think's done it.
I'd go. If I could find a travel agent who knew where the hell Sardinia was, I'd be off like a shot. Joking apart, I think it's safe to say that the modern football fan has evolved into a literate, intelligent lover of the beautiful game.
And one couple, like he says the animals, didn't they? So they all started going, meh, moo, moo, and the stars on the river, they were great. Funny, they did though, didn't they? They were right funny.
Yes, brilliant. It's like Nick Hornby doing farmyard impressions, isn't it? Well, that's it from me, and I leave you in the capable hands of the man who, if there's any justice in this world, should be fronting up the BBC's World Cup coverage this year. Yes, it's Mr. Football himself.
I think I'll finish up by singing a song solely with the girls tonight. What a marvellous idea.
Football crazy, they're football mad, and football is as much as all the reasons that they had.
Oh, we're football crazy, we're football mad. Oh, you all know my wee brother, and his name is Jock McGraw, and he's lately joined the football club, but he's mad about football, and he's had 3 black eyes already, and teeth not 3 years gone since our Jock became a member of that terrible football club, and oh, he's football crazy, he's football mad, and the football mixers robbed him all the wee bit sense he had, and it would take an out and skivvies, his clothes to wash and scrub, since our Jock became a member of that terrible football club. In the first match he took part in, I was there myself and saw they had 2 half bricks for the goalpost and a tin can for the ball. And the provost of Glasgow, he was there with lords and ladies fair. Our Jock ran out and kicked that tin can 2 miles in the air.
In the middle of the field at Hampton Park, the captain said,
McGraw, would you kindly take this penalty kick or we'll never win at all?
So he ran like mad and kicked the ball and went off like a ball.
And the ball went sailing over the stand and heading for New York. And now he's football crazy, he's football mad, and the football is rocked him all.
I wonder why people do that sort of thing.